Everything about PlayStation's Game Pass just leaked. You might want to wait before you pick up Elden Ring on PS5. You gotta check out this demake of an awesome horror game. And are we finally getting a huge state of play in March? Let's find out in today's episode of PlayStation News. Alright, so after months and months and months, actually years of waiting, Elden Ring is finally here on the PlayStation 5, the PlayStation 4, every console under the sun except for the Nintendo Switch. But unfortunately, because this is a From Software release, there is a lot of bugs with this game at launch. Thankfully though, no matter where you play, you're gonna run into some sort of issues, and they all kind of seem to be equivalent in their own weird ways. On PC, the issue is that you're gonna get micro stuttering every 250 milliseconds, which is horrible. I hate stuttering, so probably will not be playing it there. On PS5, you get a lot of pop-in. On Xbox Series X, it drops below 60 frames per second a lot and causes screen tearing, so you basically need a variable refresh rate TV to take advantage of it. Series S, I think, is locked at 30 frames per second, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but it runs at 1440p and has all the same issues as the Series X version. So yeah, no matter where you play this game, you're gonna run into some issues. But out of the next gen consoles, the PS5 is the most consistent. If you play it in performance mode, it runs between 45 and 60 frames per second, and if you play in quality mode, it goes between 30 and 60 frames per second. So yeah, if you're gonna insist on playing on PS5, I would recommend the performance mode just to get as many frames out of it as possible. But the secret best way to play this game on the PlayStation 5 is actually to download the PS4 version, because you'll run it as the PS4 Pro version in backwards compatibility. You'll get a locked 60 frames per second, but then on top of that, a lot of the graphical settings will be lessened and it'll be at a lower resolution. But you'll get a very smooth, consistent 60 frames per second, which is something that a lot of people I think are going to want. Like, that's probably what I'm gonna do as soon as I get done filming this video. And the best part about that is if you do pick up the PS4 version, you're not screwing yourself in any way, because you can get a free upgrade to the PS5 version when it's patched and you're ready to play it on that console, and your save will transfer over just fine. I'm actually kind of shocked that this wasn't brought up in more reviews, because this is with the day 1.02 patch, and the 1.01 patch that all the reviewers were running on was apparently a lot worse. Like, I've looked at some reviews and you can tell where they're playing based on what's happening. Like, if you see stutter when the camera is panning, you know they're on PC. If you see pop in while they're riding their horse across the map, you know it's PS5. If you see screen tearing, it's the Xbox Series X. You know, you can tell where the game is being played based on what issues the footage has on screen. Honestly, to me, pop-in isn't really the biggest issue. I think the bigger issue there is that you can't get a locked 60 frames per second out of the PS5 version. I think the best way, knowing all the stuff that's going on with it, would be to play the PS4 version on PS5. And yeah, if you have a PS4, you're stuck at 30 frames per second. I don't know what to tell you. I know I've been talking a lot this year about games coming out and feeling like they're about 80% done, but by most accounts, the only issues with Elden Ring as a whole are its performance. It's not really the game itself feeling unfinished, it's just not optimized well for pretty much any console out there, which is like par for the course on From Software games. I've been there for every launch of every Souls game, going all the way back to Demon Souls, and I'm telling you right now, every single one of these games, except for Sekiro, has had issues at launch, which is weird because Sekiro, for some reason, just looked and ran perfect right when I booted it up for the first time, and it was honestly kind of shocking because I'm used to the good old days where you had to open up a file on your computer to change the resolution in Dark Souls. Like, it's come a long way. Unfortunately though, Elden Ring is a little bit of a step back in the performance section of its gameplay. Honestly, what it really comes down to is how sensitive you are to this kind of stuff. Like, if pop-in's gonna bother you, do the PS4 version. If you're not gonna notice when it drops below 60 frames per second, I guess stick with the PS5 version. But, you know, it never hurts to just wait a couple days after a game comes out, because there's usually a hotfix or whatever that happens that fixes a lot of the issues. I know this kind of sucks because it's a weekend game, it's coming out on a Friday, but if any of these issues bug you, it's definitely worth it just to wait a week or two if they are going to patch it. And From Software has said they're already working on the issues and they'll have a patch out soon, so I would just wait it out if any of these issues are really going to bug you all that much. But yeah, my play here I think is to grab it on the PS4, and then I'm going to use the disc copy to upgrade it to the PS5 version, and I will be good to go when it is fixed. I guess that's a testament to how good Elden Ring is, because it has performance issues on pretty much every console there is to play it on, but it's still getting 9s and 10s, mostly 10s, completely across the board. It's pretty awesome. So a few months back around Halloween, I talked about this demake of Bloodborne that basically basically strips everything down in it and turns it into a PS1 game. And at the time, I was like, man, I hope they go back and do something like this for the original Dead Space. Here we are a few months later, and someone has done just that. Someone has actually created a PS1 demake of the original Dead Space, and when you look at it, you're like, oh, Dead Space 1 was inspired by Resident Evil 4. This Dead Space demake is definitely inspired by the original Resident Evil. It's pretty dang cool. The sound effects are all there. You get the item screens when you find something new. It fills the entire screen, gives you a little description. The combat actually looks like it held up pretty well, and there's just something about the Dead Space graphics that looks so much scarier in that PS1 blocky polygon art style. I played a few PS1 games when I was growing up. I was definitely into Crash Bandicoot and all the stuff like that, but I really didn't get to play Resident Evil and Resident Evil 2 until much later. I played them on the PlayStation Vita, and I had a ton of fun doing it, but man, this would be a really fun thing to try out in 2022. The Bloodborne one is also extremely cool. It's basically translated over in a very similar way, but it looks like it's actually fun and modernizes things in all the right ways so you could actually just jump in and play it in 2022. That one eventually is supposed to come out. I don't know what's going on with this Dead Space one, but hopefully enough people show interest in it where the person at least makes a playable level or something like that, because I feel like getting to fight a necromorph in this PS1 graphical style with your headphones on sitting in the dark, that would probably be a pretty fun, pretty scary, and pretty cool experience. Alright, so we've been waiting for a few months now for Sony to announce a new state of play that's more like the showcases where they show off new games we have to look forward to, maybe reveal a few release dates, and actually show us stuff that we're waiting for and not stuff that we're going to play in just a couple weeks like the Gran Turismo 7 one. So as it turns out, we actually don't have all that long to wait because the known leaker Tom Henderson himself said on Twitter, not a scoop or anything, but surely PlayStation has to be doing something in March. There's too many things aligning that suggest it's probably the case. Now that really wouldn't constitute a whole news story in itself, but then another known leaker quote retweeted him, Special Nick, and he said, happy to add to what's already out there. Yes, they've got a good show in March. This is supposed to be the good one. So people obviously started going crazy on Twitter trying to think about what could be shown off at this state of play, and I think a lot of these options make a ton of sense. The first one, obviously, now that Horizon Forbidden West has come out and gotten all of its great reviews and everyone's bought it, is a release date for God of War Ragnarok. Sony has been building up God of War all year. They released their best PC port yet with God of War just a few weeks ago. Everyone absolutely loves it. Now everyone's super hyped to play God of War Ragnarok at the end of the year. If they came out and said right at the beginning, here's some more gameplay, here's the release date, here's when you're going to be playing the sequel to God of War, that would be awesome. Another game we haven't seen in a while that we desperately need to is Hogwarts Legacy. I know there were those rumors that it's getting delayed until 2023, but then Warner Brothers came out and said, no, this game is coming by the end of the year. So yeah, I feel like now's the time for Sony to really blow the doors open on that game and say, yep, here's Hogwarts Legacy. You can play it on other consoles because Warner Brothers is making it, but yeah, you're going to want to play it on PS5 because they're the ones who initially revealed it. We're also still waiting on Resident Evil Village DLC. After the game came out and sold a ton of copies, Capcom said they were just going to get started on a new expansion or something to add on to the end of Resident Evil Village. Again, that game is kind of tied to PlayStation. Just the whole Resident Evil brand as a whole is tied to PlayStation, so I could see that being a huge announcement at a Sony State of Play. And then of course there's stuff like this Metal Gear Solid remake that's supposedly happening for the PlayStation VR 2. That would make sense because they just showed us the headset in their blog post and that was a little bit underwhelming. So if they are doing a huge State of Play showcase in March, they could show off the headset, they could show off a couple of the games, they could make Horizon Call of the Mountain actually look cool and not like a VR game from 5 years ago. There's a lot of stuff they can do here to really get people excited for the PlayStation VR. We also know that Hideo Kojima is working on his next project. There are a ton of rumors that it could be something related to Silent Hills once again. We know he wants to work with Norman Reedus. We know that Silent Hill is kind of up for grabs, and we know that there's an unannounced Silent Hill project in the works. I could totally see that being a third-party exclusive that Sony buys as a first-party exclusive, developed by Hideo Kojima. That would be absolutely incredible. So yeah, there's a ton of games that could be announced, but if this really is the big one, it seems like now is the time to announce Project Spartacus, because Jeff Grubb over at GamesBeat just leaked literally everything there is to know about Spartacus, all the tiers, what it's going to be called, and the price breakdown of the entire thing. So as we've heard in the past, Project Spartacus is going to be broken up into 3 tiers, but they're all going to be titled PS Plus. So you're going to have PS Plus Essential, PS Plus Extra, and PS Plus Premium. PS Plus Essential is what you have now. now. You get a few games every month, you add them to your account, and if you miss them, they go away forever or until they show up on PS Plus again, but you have to add them to your account to be able to keep them. And of course, you have to keep paying for PS Plus to be able to access these games. So that's going to be $10 a month. And then for $13 a month, there's PS Plus Essential. PS Plus Essential is taking the game library from PlayStation Plus and combining it with the game streaming of PlayStation Now and making it cost $13 a month. It's pretty simple. The other thing that's getting added on for PS Plus Essential though is a catalog of games, which really just sounds like they're combining PS Now and PS Plus because PS Now already has a bunch of PS4 games on it that you can download to your PS5 and enjoy. I bet that'll get beefed up a little bit though, where like games like Avengers or Final Fantasy VII Remake that have been on PS Plus before, if they're on it at the time that this comes out, then they also will include the PS5 version like they have not in the past. So the top tier of this is PS Plus Premium for $16 a month. Not only does it come with everything in PS Plus Essential and Extra, it also comes with game trials where you can download a game to your PS5, try it for a limited amount of time, and then decide if you want to purchase the game and keep your save. That was actually a feature with PS Plus on PS3 when it came out, and they stopped doing it for some reason. And then in addition to that, you're also going to get access to classic games, which means PS1, PS2, and PS3, those games running on your PlayStation 5. So this actually doesn't seem like too bad of a deal. Right now, PS Plus is $10 a month, and they're actually adding features to it, which is kind of cool. The $13 a month option is kind of the one I would steer clear from. I would either go for that $10 one or the $16 one. The one thing, again, that I really want to know here is if all of my games that I already own on the PlayStation Store from the PS3 generation are going to work. Because I own stuff like Infamous 2, I own the original Infamous, I own Resistance 2 and Resistance 3, and so many other PS3 games. I don't want to have to pay $16 a month to access those once they're added to Sony's service. I think the right thing to do for them would be to say, hey, we're adding Resistance 3, for example, to our service this month, and if you own it on the PlayStation Store already, you can download it and you'll be good to go. I know it sounds like splitting hairs, but if I already own all the PS3 games I want to play digitally, that could mean I could just buy the $10 version of PS Plus and be fine. I wouldn't need to pay for the $16 version to get access to games I already bought for full price, like a full $60. That's what I paid for Resistance 3 back in the day. Like, it's already frustrating enough that you have to pay for PS Now to access those games, even if you already own them, right? Like, if I wanted to play the streaming version of Resistance 3, I don't even know what's on there, but if it's on there, right, and I want to play the streaming version of it, there's no way for that app to check that I already own the game and then say, yep, you can stream this game to your PS5 that you already own. And that's what kind of scares me about Sony here. I'm like, are they really gonna nickel and dime me over a game I already paid $60 for on the exact same store that's running on my PlayStation 5 right now? I hope they don't do it, but I really wouldn't put it past them. And then what happens if I have these games physically? I own Infamous 1 and I own The Last of Us Part 1 on disc. Like, what happens if I put that disc in my PS5? They're Blu-ray discs. It should be able to read that they're PS3 games, and their competition, which charges less than $16 a month for Game Pass Ultimate, you can take an Xbox 360 disc and put it in your Xbox Series X and it'll download the backwards compatible version of the game for you. Yes, you need to put the disc in to activate that downloadable version, but still, you can literally take a game you bought 10 years ago or more, like more than 10 years ago, put it in your Xbox Series X and it just works. Sony needs to make sure that if they are including PS3 games in this PS Plus service, that you're able to do the same thing. Because again, they're charging about as much, if not $1 more. I don't really know what the Xbox Game Pass Ultimate cost is right now. I think it's $15 a month. Again, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, if they're charging $1 more than that, and then you have to subscribe to that to get access to games you already own, physically or digitally, that's a big problem. I don't want to hammer them too hard for it because this hasn't been announced yet. Like, this is entirely based on a leak, but still, I feel like getting the energy out there into the world, like making it known that that's not okay, is going to make them second guess what they're doing with it, right? Like, I don't know if they watch these videos, but I've seen some other people writing articles about the same thing, being like, I own a huge library of PS3 games that I have not been able to play because the PS3 notoriously breaks down very easily. There's the yellow light of death, which is like the counterpart to the red ring of death, and then also the Blu-ray laser in PS3's breaks super easily, and it's very expensive to fix. So yeah, making it so you have to subscribe to a service to play games you already bought, I don't think that's the right move, Sony, but that's just me. The big thing I'm really happy about here though is that day one exclusives don't seem like they're going to be included in any of these tiers of PlayStation Plus. They're going to keep it exactly the same as it is now, where some games like Hell Let Loose might show up day one, but that's going to be a rarity. I don't want games like God of War or Ragnarok to show up day one on this service, because again, we've seen how that affects Microsoft's games. They're really focusing on quantity over quality, and I think that's what hurts them when you compare them to Sony. I want Sony to keep making the highest quality games and giving them away for free on a service that you pay $16 a month for. That is a recipe for cheaper games that come out quicker and have bugs and don't run as well. But yeah, it's cool to see that Sony is finally answering back to Microsoft and Xbox Game Pass, but they're doing it in their own way instead of straight copying it.